I would like to welcome you all to the third event in the Spirit Acting Multifaith Views on Social Change and Social Action Speaker Series. I am the Reverend Nancy Hamlin-Sokup, and I'm the University Multifaith Chaplain. And this initiative is co-hosted with InterVarsity Christian Fellowship, but it is also an initiative of Roger Williams Interfaith Council, a group that includes student leaders from faith groups on campus, including Hillel, the Muslim Students Association, the Newman Club, as well as InterVarsity. Before we get underway for this wonderful panel from InterVarsity Christian Fellowship titled Still Rebuilding New Orleans, InterVarsity presents stories from the Big Easy 7 years after Katrina. I would just like to acknowledge our sponsors. We have been very fortunate to fund this series through a mini grant from the President's Inclusive Excellence Initiative, the College of Arts and Sciences, the Division of Humanities and Performing Arts, the School of Law, and the Feinstein Center for Service Learning and Community Engagement. We're so glad you're here to see such support for the students who went to New Orleans. I'd also like to acknowledge two other people. Carol Zucchetti is here from SPL. And we're so grateful Madge Toms, who's the faculty advisor for Newman Club, is here. We're so glad you're here as well. Thank you. And for those of you who are friends, learn more about the service trip, we thank you for being here. I believe now we are ready to introduce the panel. So Tim, there you go. And we are filming this, so.
So in that case, you should probably watch what I say. Hey, everybody, my name's Tim, and I'm just going to kind of introduce what our trip was, kind of what we did, and why we did it. So basically, I think we all know about Katrina. Back in 2005, the hurricane swept up the Gulf Coast, and it was a disaster. It basically caused over $75 billion in damage and claimed over 1,800 lives. This is a natural disaster. It was a huge issue. And I think something that probably comes to mind is, right, this was back in 2005, this was 7 years ago, so why are we still going back? And it's because they still need to be rebuilt. New Orleans isn't rebuilt, and it still needs to be fixed. And so, ever since 2006, students from InterVarsity have been going down to New Orleans and helping to rebuild stuff. So every spring break, just groups of students go down and help. And what we like to call Katrina Relief Urban Plunge, or CRUP, is the trip that we go on. And it's really neat. The main purpose of it, the three main components, are community, service, and spirituality. And that's what we do. That's really neat. So I'm going to try and explain kind of more personally, like what we did as InterVarsity from Roger Williams when we went down there. And so, I mean, the main thing you can't leave out is our trip began with a bus ride. That took 27 hours. 27 hours of talent shows, movies, and random pit stops at random gas stations with only one bathroom and 48 people on a bus. So it was an adventure, to say the least. And then when we got down there, the first day we kind of spent just relaxing and then exploring the Big Easy, exploring the city. We went to the French Quarter, we went down to the 9th Ward, we went all over the place. And it's really eye-opening to see that and kind of just see how the city really does still need to be rebuilt. Like when we went around, you drive through these neighborhoods and you see a house that's completely normal and then next to it is an empty lot. You know, you see a foundation and then you see a house that's still boarded up and still has the symbols that the military left on it when they checked the house. You know, it's not repaired, it's not recovered. New Orleans has a 30% blight rate, which is the highest in the nation. It basically means that in the neighborhoods, 30% of the houses are still empty, 30% of the lots, people haven't come back home, and it's been almost 7 years. So, but yeah, so that's kind of what we saw the first day. We were kind of just going around and seeing the city, and then we spent the next 5 days just helping to build. It was really neat. We were all on the same street, 3 houses, all in different stages, just helping to rebuild and getting to know a few people from the area, and getting to hear their stories and hear why they're there rebuilding also. And it's really hard to share how awesome all this was without, I don't know, it's difficult because it's much more than just an experience of a week of building. You get to know these people, and on top of that, you get to know all the people who went with us. We were down there with students from Wheaton, Stonehill, and Bryan College. And then in addition, there were lots of students from all over New England who met us down there. And yeah, so besides building, we'd spend the night and we'd spend the afternoon kind of hanging out, and then at night we'd spend this time called community time, when we basically just debrief on the day and kind of learn about different things having to do with maybe Christian morality and social justice. And it's neat to see such a group of people who are excited to learn, excited to think, and who are open-minded. And like I said earlier, like the 3 main components were community, service, and spirituality. And you really can't beat this kind of community. It's such a tight-knit group of people who are just excited about being there, excited about learning, excited about thinking. A lot of us would be up at the crack of dawn, before dawn even, to get ready to go to the work sites, and then up until 1 or 2 a.m. just talking and hanging out. And so I hope that you're just excited to hear all those stories we have and maybe a bunch of questions, because it's an awesome, awesome experience.
Hello everybody, I'm Tony, and I did indeed go on this trip, and it was awesome. So Tim mentioned we had 3 aspects of the trip, and I'm going to talk a little bit about the service aspect. Service, I think, was kind of the reason why most of us went down. Kind of like, we heard about this trip, and like the main thing that we heard about was we're going to be building houses. So that was kind of the main reason that we went, I guess. Initially, that was the reason that we went. So yeah, we built houses, worked 8-hour days, Monday through Friday. It was a lot of fun. We did a bunch of stuff. We did flooring, we put doors in. Me and Sam Gillislee did a lot of painting, and it was a lot of fun. There's also something really rewarding about it. Sacrificing your spring break, which is oftentimes spring break is thought of as a party week, and something that feels really good about sacrificing what you could be doing and going a 27-hour bus ride to New Orleans and working. But it was really, really good. It was a really, really good experience. So I'm just going to go over a couple facts, because I know, Tim highlighted a little bit of it, but I know before I went the first time, which was last year, I kind of forgot about Katrina in a way. I don't know, the media didn't really talk about it much anymore, and I guess it kind of got pushed under the rug. It was kind of just like, okay, it happened 5 years ago. This was 5 years ago at the time, and there's not really much going on anymore. But I got the invitation last year, and then I started looking at New Orleans and looking at some stats, and I was like, wow, this is like still an issue after how many years? It was 05. So Tim did steal a couple of my stats about the 30% of the houses in New Orleans are blighted, which is they're kind of boarded up and everything. And also, stat which I found very interesting was in 2000, 484,674 people lived in New Orleans, and in 2010 there was 343,829, which is a really big drop in population. So yeah, just a stat about it's really not back to where most people in our nation think it is. There's still a lot to be done. It's really crazy. You go, and you just be driving, and you see like a sweet house. really sweet house, and then the next door will be all boarded up, and like, it's crazy. I didn't expect that first time I came down, and I really realized like this city really still needs to be rebuilt. So yeah, that's kind of the main purpose why we went down there, was to help out these people who were still homeless after 5, 6, 7 years. And that's what we did. We did a bunch of stuff, and it was a great experience to serve others. I think that's one of the most rewarding things you can possibly do. To sacrifice your time to give it to someone else who really needs it. So that's one of the many awesome things that we did in New Orleans. And maybe you guys will think to go next year, because it's a great experience. So.
Hi, I'm Mia, and so I went down as well, and as Tony mentioned, the trip had a lot to do with the service, but another aspect of the trip was the spirituality. And so going down and building the houses could easily be seen as a simple service project, but the neat thing about this trip, to the people who went down, us as Christians, really feel that it's part of our life's purpose to serve others, because if there's a lot of passages in the Bible that say Jesus went out and he saw all of the pain, he saw the suffering, and then he saw it and he felt compassion for these people, and then really just spent his life on earth just serving them and loving them. And so going down, I knew that was a part of the trip, and I was really excited about it because I knew that well, A, I'd be helping people, and B, like, it's something that I should be doing. But that's about all I had really thought. It was just something that I figured I should be doing. But then, like, once we went down there, it changed a lot of things for me, and I think it changed a lot for everyone who went down there, whether they were Christian or not, because we'd go, and as Tony mentioned, you'd see, like, a house. Even if it wasn't really put together, you'd still see a house that people lived in, but then next door it would be just a plot of land with a foundation. And so you started to see that there definitely was the rebuilding that needed to be done. But then, so we'd go and we'd wake up really early at, say, 6 o'clock, and by 6:30, if we wanted, we'd be at morning prayer, and then we'd have breakfast, we'd make our lunches even, and maybe do the chores. We always had a chore to do every day, and at first that seemed like, oh, I don't know if I want to do this, but we all got really into it. Yeah, and I'll be honest, like when we went down, it was like we were sleeping on harder beds. There were bugs, there were peanut butter and jelly every day for lunch. Fortunately, I like it. But it wasn't how a typical RWU student would probably spend their break. And so, but that got me thinking. As I was down there, I had a suitcase with like a few pairs of shorts and like, that's it, and like some t-shirts and whatnot. But I was down there, and it was one of the happiest and most joyous experiences of my life because I was surrounded by people who were just so confident, so loving, so selfless and caring, and really, as Tim mentioned, engaged and wanting to learn. And so that was convicting, but the most convicting thing of all was that they were college students, and they weren't adults. They weren't people who had spent their whole lives and finally figured out that this is what they wanted. They were college students from Wheaton, Bryant, URI, and us. And we had busy days, and yet we were up all night, and we were just talking and learning. And despite how it seemed at first that we were giving up our spring break, the most awesome thing about it was I felt that I gained more from this trip than I could have ever put in. And a lot was in that spiritual aspect of like, I realized that maybe I don't want to necessarily go the average life, and I don't want even a job. And at this point now, I could easily see myself doing nonprofit for the rest of my life, and it just gave such a purpose because you weren't tied down with anything. You weren't tied down with what you would do or get like for a job tomorrow, or getting like in the real world you have to worry about getting a job, getting fired, well, you don't necessarily worry, but like there's always that, and like making money and all these things. But when you're there, you're just living. And that's what I truly found this trip to be, that just as Jesus lived on this earth and never worried, and he told us not to worry, when I was down there, I finally understood what that meant. The living, loving others, and not worrying about myself and me personally in this life. And so, like I mentioned, I gained more out of this trip than I ever thought that I could put in.
So I'm talking about community, but little disclaimer here, mine does touch on spirituality because they just intertwine with each other with my story. For the word community played a huge role in our trip. From the very beginning, before we even left, we all met in different groups for lunch or even just to hang out, to really get to know each other and what situations we would be like given down there. And yeah. And so it was nice to really just interact with people you were going with and meet new people. And then we got to the College of Rhode Island. And we got on our bus and we started driving. And for me, the bus home was just amazing because it flew by. It did not feel like 27 hours because we all were a collective whole and we didn't want to leave each other because it was our sport team. Once we got to New Orleans, we broke up into small groups, like they said, and which were our community time groups. And after community time, we broke it, like we talked about different Bible verses, and really we debriefed about our day and the good points and the bad points, or as we like to call them, our red and green lines. and we really just got to know each other on a more personal level. I know one night for me impacted me amazingly, and just changed the way I thought about the rest of the week. And that was the night we talked about like letting go of our dark pasts and opening up to people and letting people in. And one of our site leaders just really was so upfront and honest with us, which I never expected. And it just moved all of us. And so in our small groups, we talked about things that we normally don't do. And for me, I said, I don't share my feelings with anyone. Like, I keep them to myself. I don't show emotion usually a lot. Like, it's rare to see me cry. And I was bawling my eyes out while I was saying this. So it was like counteractive, but it was what happened. And for me that night, I just shared stories with my group, and us four girls just got really close. And it just changed the way I thought about the rest of the week. That I had that community, I had that family, other than my own family. And we worked on the site together, and most of my group was on my site actually. We had a lovely time. And it was just an enlightening experience because you grew as people, and you could see different people changing because of the different talks you had with them. And I remember the last night we were there, we all debriefed with our schools, and we all just were talking about how we didn't want to leave New Orleans. And then we came back to a talent show where we learned some people had very interesting talents. And then we all just, a lot of us decided to spend the whole night till we had to wake up for that 5 a.m. bus ride, worshiping and singing and just having an amazing time. And during the worship, I wanted to renew my faith, and I talked to Joel for like a very long time, and we cried, prayed, and it was just so enlightening because after that, I decided I wanted, God spoke through me or whatever you want to say, but I decided that I wanted to renew my faith, and I got back to the group, and Joel was like, you should tell everyone what just happened. And I was like, nah, like, I'm just gonna keep it to myself. He was like, no, you really should. You've grown this bond with everyone. And he was right. It was really good. I'm glad that I shared it with everyone because we had a huge group hug and you could really feel the love going on there. And for me, at the end, I did not want to leave, and I'm so glad that I made all these friends with the community. And on the work site, it made it even more powerful because we all were frustrated with each other, and nobody was doing what they, on my site, no one did what they wanted to do. The boys would run away. And so the girls really got to know each other. And it, like what everyone else is saying, the bus rides just were the culmination of our trip, basically. And I mean, for me, without the community and the loving people to show that like people actually aren't just, hey, how are you, kind of friends, they're really down to earth. And they really want you to succeed. And I still talk to a bunch of the people that are from Stonehill and Bryant. And there's my rocks right now because I just joined InterVarsity because of the trip. And I'm so glad that I made that decision. And without community on the trip, I don't know if I would even be part of InterVarsity. But I'm really glad that I made that decision.
So I guess now that you've seen a little bit of what we did and kind of heard some stuff, do you have any questions or any kind of just want to hear more stories or, you know, we're open for anything.
Really, a 27-hour bus ride is that great because I've been on a plane for about 22 times.
When you're with the right people, doing some pretty funny stuff, it can be really fun, especially when we drew mustaches on our fingers and then stashed people in their sleep. It was awesome.
And we also had things like a talent show, and Tim played some songs, and so did Joel, and Tony told some jokes, and people did some really funny talents, and it was really fun. And not only that, but especially on the bus ride home, where we knew everybody from the other schools as well as Roger better. We had some really deep conversations, just like out of nowhere on the bus. We knew that we wouldn't see these people for a long time. So it just was a great time to just debrief with them and tell them goodbye and everything.
Plus, you also get to sleep on some of the bus rides. You're like going through the night and things. There's a good chunk of hours where you're sleeping. Hopefully, if it's comfortable enough. And then there's stops every once in a while, so it breaks it up a little bit.
Or at least you're trying to sleep. Otherwise, I feel like a lot of it is kind of a game of musical chairs where most people were kind of just switching seats and trying to catch up with different people and just, yeah, like Andy was saying, kind of trying just to, you know, hang out before the full experience ends, you know.
Was there any competition between the schools? Like, you guys having like feuds or anything going on?
Not in our group. I think, no, not really. Probably the only thing that could almost resemble that was when we got down there. We actually ended up sharing the space with a bunch of people from Minnesota who weren't involved with InterVarsity at all. So they were down there to rebuild, but they weren't down there fully in the same way that we were. And so it was like we're two different entities. Sometimes people would talk and hang out, but otherwise it was like we're two independent groups because we were, you know. So.
Can you say a little bit more about how you all got placed in the areas you were placed? Was it somebody that the University in New England knew down there, and they said, this is the area we want to work in? I mean, it sounds like there's so many places that still need recovery. How do you all get hooked up with who you get hooked up with? Joel, please.
I'm Joel. Just show up here and there. So I'm the staff worker here on campus for InterVarsity. So InterVarsity's been
since Katrina, so Katrina was 2005, and since 2006, we've just been building partnerships with a lot of nonprofits. I mean, you would think when a national disaster strikes that the government is just pouring all these resources to, kind of help the people out, but a lot of that stuff dried up really fast. And so New Orleans is really at this point, and for the last few years, they've been at the mercy of just nonprofits. And so they'll just take anybody they can get. And so we worked with a group called Project Homecoming. We've worked with Habitat for Humanity most of the time, but this specific week was actually our first time working with Project Homecoming. And there's some other groups rebuilding together New Orleans. There's also a disaster relief group with the Southern Baptist Convention that works down there. So we just kind of see, where is their work, where's their availability, and we go there. And we were in East New Orleans. This is true.
Talk to us maybe about one thing that was a surprise that you weren't expecting to happen. I know you talked about the community and the relationships, but what was something that was surprising to you actually being down?
What was surprising to me was just the spirit of the people and the spirit of the city, because a big motivation I know for me was coming down there knowing all the devastation that happened, but what really surprised me was that despite all that, people are still such high spirits. It's really like the Big Easy, because people, you can just feel it's just such a great place, and people have just such high spirits.
Yeah, I would like to build off of that. It's true. We'd be walking down completely on a separate block than other residents there, and if we'd even take out a map for a second, people would run over across the street and from a different block, just to be like, hey, do you need any directions? And they were so helpful. And when you go out to eat, like Emily said, it is a Big Easy. If we had 3 hours, we had to dedicate 2 to eating, because you'd go and then they'd talk to you and they'd be like, do you want us to take your picture? And then we had told them that we were in a rush one night, and then and we said we need really quick service, and so they came, and it took a good hour before we got our food, but they were like, are we doing well? Don't you like our quick service? And just yeah, they were just nice to be down there and have an opportunity to just relax, because I feel even on vacations, it's always rushing, you're trying to do stuff, but this was when you live down there, it's just a slower pace, and you can really appreciate things a lot more. So that was a surprising and a really nice thing that I enjoyed there.
For me, I'm going to take it out of context of New Orleans itself, in that when I went down, I was expecting to get the most out of the builds, and being able to do the service and talk to locals and all that kind of stuff. But I got back, and my dad was like, how are the builds? What'd you do? And I was like, well, I did some flooring, did some baseboards, it was cool. But I got so much more out of the community time, and the people I was with, and the people I was with, and the conversations that we had and everything. I got so much more out of that. Obviously, the building is fabulous on its own, and it's great to say, hey, I got to build New Orleans, and seeing all the stuff around there was incredible, but the bonds that I made and the conversations I had are what really turned me and affected me.
I think for me, it was kind of strange, because I went down last year and then this year also, so it's my second year. And kind of in contrast to what they're all saying, I think it's an amazing experience, and all that stuff is amazing, but since I'd already been, it didn't really come as a surprise. But I think what kind of struck me was getting down there and kind of seeing the city in the same place as it was the year before. We went to some of the same places on the tour, and nothing has changed. The lower 9th Ward was a grassy field. It's just a lot of this stuff. Okay, not the whole lower 9th Ward, but the part where the levee broke. And we drove through where we stayed last year, and last year I'd gone on runs every day, and just looking out and seeing the same houses, the same lack of houses, everything was the same. The new place we were staying, you'd go on a run, and there would just be no sidewalk on certain places, or just grass, or the sidewalk's all broken. Just seeing it's still a mess down there. It's just weird to go down there, help rebuild, and come back a year later and see things still kind of in the same place.
right, since everyone else said something. Yeah, I didn't have a lot of not high expectations. I didn't have a lot of expectations at all for this trip. And what really surprised me was the bonds I made with other people from other schools. I still talk to like a good amount of them daily on like Skype and Facebook, and I just wasn't expecting that. And now I see people who are on the Roger trip, like around campus, that I never really noticed before because I didn't know them. And now they're like my best friends. So that was really surprising that I got so close to people within 1 week that, yeah, it was great.
What would you say to people who you want to encourage to go next year? Let's do it.
Totally do it.
And even though it's linked to InterVarsity and the Christian Fellowship and things, you don't have to be a Christian, you don't have to be religious, you don't have to be anything to be able to go on the trip. Just to be able to do good things for other people and to be open to learning new things about other people, and it's the most rewarding experience you could ever have if you go in with that mindset.
I think we probably all have plenty to say if we wanted to convince you to go. But yeah, it's life-changing, seriously. You know, people always say things are life-changing with this one. It really is. Like, just from, like everyone was saying, you know, from all the different pieces, even the bus ride, like all of it leaves an impact on you, and all the people leave an impact on you. And it's really, you just can't forget it. So, yeah you should go this year.
And I would definitely agree with Tim because, like was mentioned, the last night we kind of debriefed with everyone. And I remember it had been the whole week. And as I was kind of debriefing, I was just like, I hadn't really even thought about it, but as I was speaking, it just kind of came out, and I'm like, you know, this was like a really emotional week, and then I was just like, a wreck. But it was, and like, that's the thing, because I don't know if I've ever really said many things are life-changing, but it was to the point where I had thought before that maybe after college I'd want to go to Africa and I'd want to do these things, but then it was like, well, why do you want to do these things? Do you want to do it because it's something, oh, I should be doing it, it's good, but I didn't really realize I was thinking that. But then it was like, is it because I just love people so much that I'm just waking up and you're doing and you're serving and you don't even think about it, and that's just how you live? And I finally could understand that, and so it was life-changing to the point where I don't want to ever forget that I could be the most happy serving without even having a regular job at all. And so that was really cool. And I wasn't expecting that. So to any level, I think you grow a lot going on this trip.
Any last questions? Well, after the whole presentation's over, like we're all here, you know, we're totally willing to talk to you or answer questions, so just keep that in mind. So, Alan?
We have, oh, is there, next, oh, good, I preempted it. Come on up, Allie, it's okay. Don't go away, Joel, come back.
Hi everybody, my name is Allison, and I want to tell you a little bit more about why we go down to New Orleans every year to rebuild. So as you can probably figure out, InterVarsity is a Christian organization, and as Christians, we believe that we serve a God who is involved in His creation and invites us to be involved in His creation and His work of healing, bringing healing to places that have suffered pain and brokenness like New Orleans. And we believe that God invites us to be a physical manifestation of His love here on earth. And one thing that we really found when we were down in New Orleans on Cup was that when we went to bring this change to other people, God was actually creating this positive change in us as well. And in InterVarsity, we want to create more opportunities which can bring this change and growth to more and more people, not only on Cup, but every day here on campus as well. So our mission statement at InterVarsity is that we want to see students renewed, our students transformed, our campus renewed, and world changers developed. And we fulfill this through 3 core values, which a couple people already touched upon, but I'm going to go a little bit more in depth with them. and these are community, service, and spirituality. And we've already explained how we fulfill these things on CRUP, but I also want to talk about how we do them every day on campus. And so we have opportunities to gather as a community almost every day here on campus, whether it's in morning prayer or in family dinners or even an occasional game night. We're just kind of always together. And our community consists of people, not just people who are Christians, but people who have never even opened a Bible before coming to InterVarsity. And these things don't make up our community, but we really become a family, and that's what forms our community. And our second core value is service, and obviously we do service once a year by going to New Orleans and rebuilding, but we also host equally important events right here on campus. And most recently we hosted one called Liberty in North Korea. And in that event we heard about all the oppression in North Korea and ways in which we can help the refugees. And as our fellowship grows in numbers, we want to bring more and more events like this to campus. And our third core value is spirituality. And so we meet every Tuesday night as a fellowship to study scripture and discuss what we've read in a way that's really open to asking questions and learning more about the Bible. And you know, you don't even have to be Christian to come because it's just really open to asking questions. And with that being said, we're really serious about getting to know more about who Jesus was and what he taught and who he claimed to be and how that's so relevant to every single area of our lives. And so we want to invite you to be a part of CRUP next year and to check out our InterVarsity meetings. And so after Nancy talks again, you can sign up over here and you can talk to any of us at the reception afterwards if you have any more questions. And so now I just want to invite Nancy up to close us out.
And I'm going to bring Joel. Thank you, Allie. I neglected to introduce somebody because I thought he might come down and speak some more. But this is Joel Seedham, who is the staff person for InterVarsity. Many of you know him.
They're laughing because it's Sedan.
Sedan.
Not Saddam,
Not
Saddam. It's all good.
I've known you
Story
for
of
6
my life.
months, and I'm
Yeah.
still calling you Joel Seedham. That's
You don't typically call me Joel Seedham
No.
when we're in conversation.
But I'm so glad you're laughing. And because people call me Nancy Sukiyaki, Nancy Soup Cup, so so I get it. So I understand this. But Joel's, in all seriousness, Joel's leadership on campus has been phenomenal, not only for InterVarsity, but in terms of interfaith life here on campus. What you've heard today is just a sampling of the diverse spirituality that we have here at Roger Williams, and that is growing in awareness. So we just feel so thankful for InterVarsity and the witness that it had this March in New Orleans. I have just a couple things, but I'd like Joel to say something. I do have one public service announcement. Along with signing up if you're interested in InterVarsity, some of you are also here for merit point system, and I've got the clipboard right here. So please make sure you sign here along with your ID number. But Joel, do you want to say anything else before we close?
I don't think so.
Joel, sit down.
Joel Sedan. Yeah, I'm thankful that all of you guys came out, and we're going to have a reception afterwards. So yeah, feel free to get to know us, ask some questions. This is hopefully a sampling of just kind of our identity as a fellowship on campus, and we're a welcoming group, and we want to continue to bless the people of New Orleans in the years to come. And so we hope that, yeah, you'll consider that and get to know us a little more, and we'd love to get to know you.